Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Happy Punchki Day, and welcome to today's meeting. Thank you. 92 years of incredible speakers and networking, and that tradition continues today. Especially want to welcome our DEC members. If you're not a DEC, 10 seconds to convince you. Your next job, prospect, client, best friend is right in this room. So we invite you to invest in you. Join today. And you can do that right on our website, club.org. And if you do it today, we'll give you a free event ticket through the end of June. As we get started, I would just ask you to take a moment to silence your cell phone so we don't disturb today's program. And as you know, if you've been with us before, we've got a tradition of starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand me and join me as we honor our country. I pledge allegiance to the of the United States of America and to the republic for which liberty and justice for all. Kindly remain standing as our invocation today will be delivered by our good friend, Brother Gary Wegner, Executive Director of the Capuchin Soup Kitchen. Brother?
Thank you. Full disclosure, although I was born years, I moved to Chicago just in time for the Super Bowl in 1985 and the Super Bowl Shuffle. Let us pray. From the Windy City to the land of the rising sun to the Motor City, our guest, the Honorable Rahm Emanuel, has traveled in the service of his city and our. In the Talmud, there is a proverb, receiving guests is greater than receiving the divine presence. In a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, believers are admonished there is no good in the one who is not hospitable. And St. Peter advised, be hospitable to one another without complaining. To which Dale Carnegie would add, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain. Most fools do. Therefore, Lord of the nations, at the beginning of the lunar new year of the horse, may we receive our speaker with hospitality, respect, and kindness. We are grateful, Holy One, for the opportunity to listen, learn, and even question, but not complain, so that the light of knowledge, wisdom, and engagement will fill our hearts and challenge our minds. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, at whose word all came to be. On this day of Mardi Gras, may we welcome friend and stranger to the feast. We ask that you give us the faith and the hope to believe that you will reward us with an unending banquet, of which the food we have shared and for which we are grateful is but a taste of the bounty yet to come. Until that day, may our Muslim sisters and brothers who at sundown begin the fast of Ramadan, and Christians who tomorrow begin their Lenten fast, be strengthened by your grace. Gracious God, may your abundant blessings be upon the members of the DEC and our guests. Bless the residents of our great city, state, and nation, and upon those most in need, now and forever. Amen. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Keep up the fantastic work you're doing. Very quick thank you to WDIV and Lawrence Tech University for live streaming today's meeting. And you've been with us before, you know students are here today and every day, courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. Their morning already began with a really cool reception with the ambassador. Please hold your applause while I tell you what schools are here today. Usually we have high schools, most of them are off on midwinter break, but we're happy today to be joined by Wayne State University students, thanks to Stephen Polk and Highgate. Oakland University students, thanks to Ambassador Ghaffari, appreciate that. And representing Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Jory Wyatt, thanks for bringing the Michigan State University students. Go Green. Good job. So now, join me in a round of applause as we thank the sponsors and welcome those students. A couple things on your tables. You'll see our sponsor brochure. Make no mistake, we could not deliver the kind of programs like you see today without their generosity. So thank you To those sponsors, if you'd like to become a sponsor, we'd love to talk to you about those opportunities. Also on your table, man, oh man, our season lineup is getting red hot. March 4th, next, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear will join us. About 8 days later, right here on this stage, March 12th, David Burrett, the CEO of U.S. Steel, will be here at the Masonic. Save the date. We have not announced it yet, have not sold tickets yet, but April 7th, we'll be here at the Masonic when we're hosting Austin Goolsbee from the Chicago Fed. He's great to listen to. And trust me, way more announcements coming. This spring will be jam-packed and red hot at the DEC. All right, 92 years of speakers, and those speakers tell the history of our country. And February 17th was a popular date. Ambassador Emanuel, you now join a distinguished list of 13 others who spoke at the DEC on this date. Here's a couple of highlights. Way back in 1936, a gentleman named Arthur Whiteside was the CEO of Dun and Bradstreet at the time. They called themselves the Credit Men. And he delivered a speech titled The National and Washington, D.C. Outlook from the Credit Men. 1984, if you like beer, you would have liked to have been here because we hosted the CEO of Stroh Company, Peter Stroh. And in 1987, former Defense Secretary Robert McNamara talked about his new book, Blundering into Disaster, the First Century of the Nuclear Age. Sounds so uplifting, doesn't it? I'm glad I missed that one. And today we're pleased to add you, Mr. Ambassador, as our 14th speaker on this day in DEC history. Congratulations and thank you. And finally, you can use your smartphone. We want you to be in. You can. And those questions. Of course, represents Michigan's 6th district in the U.S. Congress. She is a tireless worker for Michigan, our auto industry, and our country. She's a fierce defender of democracy, a huge proponent of civility. And she's a DEC board member. And let me say a moment about that. Despite her crazy schedule, she digs in with the DEC, and we can't thank her enough for doing so. She's also very supportive of me personally. I appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
Thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Punchki Day in honor of John Dingell, who's hoping you're gaining lots of calories today. Steve, I love you, and thank you for that introduction and for your leadership of the DEC. So I think I'm going to be brief, because the fact of the matter is I have lots of stories that I would love to tell. And Nolan's even reminded me of some of the stories that actually neither Rahm or I remember. And I've known Steve as well. They're two really good people that I've known for the better part of my life. So I'm going to start with just being straightforward in introducing today's speaker. I said to him, I don't know what to call you. Actually, I do have a lot of names I could call him, but I guess I'll call him his most recent title, Ambassador Rahm Emanuel. Rahm served, his most recent assignment has been to serve as UN Ambassador to Japan, where he really did an incredible job of deepening the U.S.-Japan alliance. All of you know that prior to that, he was the two-term mayor of Chicago. There, he fostered a booming tech company attraction, accomplished record-breaking school graduation rates, and invested in new parks and libraries. And as we all know, prior to becoming mayor, he served as President Barack Obama's chief of staff. And I knew him even before then. I usually blame Rashida for my language, but, you know, Rahm might have taught me a few words back then. Rahm back here, I swear as much as you do, and I'm the Catholic girl. He graduated from Sarah Lawrence College and holds a master's degree in speech and communication from Northwestern University. We're really glad to welcome you today, Rahm. And our moderator is a familiar face to all. Stephen Henderson is a native Detroiter who has more than 30 years of journalism experience as a writer and editor and a deep-rooted connection with this city. He is the founder of Bridge Detroit, and he can be seen on Detroit PBS, where he is the host of American Black Journal and co-host of One Detroit. Please give the warm Detroit Economic Club welcome to Rahm and Stephen.
I just want to be very clear that Debbie and I have a mutually assured destruction motto. She tells one story, I got another story. That's how we keep each other in check.
Okay, it's great to see you. Welcome to Detroit. Welcome to the Masonic Temple. I do want to start, though, before we get to the conversation, just giving you an opportunity to talk a little about Jesse Jackson, who died earlier today, I think, or last night. You're a Chicagoan, he's a Chicagoan. You both have worked a long time on a lot of different causes, not just there, but nationally. But I figure you'd have some thoughts about his passing.
You know, I put something out on this. I was fortunate when I wrote a book on cities. He actually did a blurb for the back of it. And I mean, it's important to be honest. You know, if you're the mayor of the city of Chicago, you're going to have both a cooperative and a confrontational relationship with the Reverend. And he would want it no other way. Right. And we had a standing whenever he would text me on my phone and he'd call, I need to meet, and we would sit down, etc. And we worked through a lot of other issues. I said this today to a reporter who called. We rebuilt the entire Red Line from downtown to 95th Street. All 11.2 miles, every station. We doubled our set-aside. It was one of the things he challenged us to do, etc. And then we set a new standard. That was the collaborative stuff. There were other stuff that were confrontational, but I'll tell you one funny story. We used to meet all the time. You know, as I said, about every 3 or 4 months. I'd add, do you want some coffee? And so the first time he sits down, he has a cup of coffee, about 3 kind of little things of half and half, and 3 packets of sugar. I said, Reverend, I'm sorry, I come from a medical family. That's dessert, that's not coffee. I said, I drink my coffee black, you're gonna get 1 creamer and 1 sugar, and that's it from now on. But he was you know, let me say one thing to him, and I met President Shimon Peres when I brought my daughter to Israel for her bat mitzvah. And in his deep Lithuanian accent, he says, there are 2 books. The guest book and a history book. And how you live your life will determine which book your name goes in. And how Reverend Jackson lived his life will be ensured that his book, his name will always be in the history book. Nobody will ever say that he walked through here and didn't make a difference. You may not have ever agreed with him. Many times I did not. But he made a difference wherever he was there, and his presence was known, and it was for the betterment of humanity.
You know, I wrote a short piece this morning about his passing, and I took 2 photos, which I think are just say everything about him. One was him standing on the balcony at the Lorraine Motel right before Dr. King was assassinated. And then the other is him crying in Grant Park the night that Obama was elected president. I mean, the arc of that narrative is amazing. It's an amazing American story. Okay, to you, speaking of long arcs.
Yeah, let's get back to that subject.
You know, as Debbie said, you have done all kinds of different things. You've had a lot of different roles. Let's talk about what brings you, I guess, to this moment where you are talking a lot these days about K-12 education. Obviously, that's something you have had something to do with over time, and you were mayor of Chicago, where the mayor has a lot of say over K-12, very different from what we have here. But talk about why you're focused on that and what you hope to bring to that conversation.
Well, one is, in a earlier life, you don't know this, but at one point I was going to be a ballet dancer. I had a scholarship to the Joffrey Ballet School. But I ended up, I want to become an early childhood educator. Not that any of your kids should stay with me, but that's what I wanted to do. And it has been a through line of my life. And it's actually why I decided to run for mayor, was I thought we could do much better than what we were doing in public education. And so that's kind of the permanent. Second is, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the love of my parents and a good education. And I think it's an obligation and responsibility of every adult to make sure the next generation is better off, and you can't do it without education. That's A. B, we are at, as a country, a 30-year low in reading and math scores. 50% of our kids cannot do math or reading at grade level. You know more on the president's position on windmills than that data. Now, I grew up at a time of politics when we had the nation at risk, Mr. Bloom's report. Governor Clinton worked with President Reagan and other governors, and we had a blueprint, Democratic, Republican presidents, on how to improve education. Today, you can't get the governors together. And our kids are falling through the cracks. So I've laid out an agenda. I went to Mississippi. They went from 49th to 9th in reading scores nationwide. Alabama, Louisiana, and Tennessee that replicated the phonics model have all seen improvements. We don't have a day to waste here. I don't care, Mississippi, let's go, model it. Now, I happen to, and there's other things, but in the interest of time. Yeah. Second, in high school, we did this in Chicago, where we drove our graduation from 56 to 84%. 67% of our kids went on to college. First reform, you got a B average in high school, first city to make community college free. Tuition, books, and transportation. Second, we set a goal, and 50% of our kids graduated with college credit on high school day. Dual credit, dual enrollment. Third, we did not let you get a high school diploma without showing us a letter of acceptance from college, community college, a branch of the armed forces, or a vocational school. Every child who walked on graduation day told us where they were walking to. Hired more college career counselors, et cetera. Not just your children and my children are no. We were talking earlier about our kids. Every child will have an expectation of what's next. And I came here because set up an idea of service to skills, helmets to hard hats. You serve the country, we're going to give you a $10,000 signing bonus to go into the trades. You have a CEO of Ford here, says he's got 5,000 jobs, 6 figures, can't fill them, and crickets out of Washington. So I'm not saying I can solve all that. Broadband industry, 150,000 electricians, they can't find them. And when yet, in Washington, and we are all doing this, we got 43 job training programs, and you got companies and CEOs saying they can't find people. We got a problem. So I'm going to offer ideas, and next, we made major changes in community colleges. In about 3-4 weeks, I'll be laying out an agenda of reform and change on the community college education. Because we are not getting from here to there, restoring confidence in the American dream, if 50% of our kids cannot do reading and math at grade level. There is no way to go from here to there without going through the school. Can't be done.
So you mentioned Mississippi, and that is the story of the day right now, right? Everyone's talking about what's happening there. Before that, it was Tennessee. Before that, it was Florida. And there does seem to be this kind of cycle of states who take on a particular part of this problem and try to move forward. But I guess I'm more interested in states that are consistently at the top as well. Places like Massachusetts, places like Maryland, which have their ups and downs, but have been able to over time, I guess, achieve that kind of excellence. And I guess I wonder what you think the difference is between what's happening in some place like Mississippi and what happens in states where they're hitting that mark consistently that we could learn from. I think that this conversation gets caught up in politics a lot and not in
What a
outcomes,
shocker.
right? It's the outcomes that matter.
Well, one is, look, if there's a pox on both parties. I do think Republicans are making a mistake walking away from public education. And I think Democrats made a mistake walking away from standards and accountability. And our kids are falling through the cracks on both. It is not wrong, the criticism that we were teaching to the test. However, the answer wasn't to get rid of the test. Breaking news, not every child in 3rd grade gets a trophy and a ribbon, okay? It's just not. And you don't throw out accountability. When I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, 6 weeks ago, principal said, we use the data to improve our education. It's a means and it's a tool towards an objective. It is not the objective. And there was a little bit that needed to be self-corrected, but not what we did. On the other hand, walking away from schools, privatizing all education, is not going to get there when, in fact, the private schools don't have accountability and standards that we can objectively measure by. So to me, that is where the problem is. I do think, now in Mississippi, you know what they call, we all outside, and I read about this for the last year, it's a topic I mentioned, we call it the Mississippi Miracle. Mm-hmm. You know what they call it in Mississippi? The marathon. 20 years of hard work, never giving up, top down, you don't get a choice, you're gonna do phonics, here's how many hours a day, here's what the teacher training gets, here's how much support you get, here's what a child gets, etc. They start earlier. You don't opt out. That is what's gonna happen, and there's a lesson to learn. And I said, if Mississippi is succeeding, and I can say that the demographics is tough, but if you go to 49th to 9th, I should do it that way, that tells you something. Tennessee, Alabama, and Louisiana, also difficult demographics. They replicate it and they have success. Well, this is not a one-off trick pony. That means let's scale this, take it nationwide, stick with it, and be disciplined. If you're looking for instant gratification, education change is not where you need to go. This is a long haul.
Yeah. Talk about the difference between money, and this is where the argument gets hung up, right? Some people say you just got to invest. You have to invest in teachers, you have to invest in infrastructure, curriculum, all of those things, and it will happen. Other people say, well, you can throw money down a rat hole doing that it's accountability that matters. It's not an either or, but...
No, actually, it isn't either or, but I do come at it, you could spend more money doing what we're doing and not get a different result. Like, as I told you, you got 43 job training programs, and there's not an industry where somebody says we're short workers, skilled workers. So doing more of the same is the first sign, and expecting a different result is the first sign of insanity. How you spend that money is important. Here, the program in Mississippi is on the science of reading and phonics. It will take more money to train the teachers. It will take more money to hire a tutor if a child is falling behind. But if you're not doing phonics, you're not going to get a better result. Now, one anecdote out of my experience, I found out in our community colleges, the mayor controls them in Chicago, we were spending $40 million on remedial math and reading. So I said, I'm taking $5 million, and if you get a B average, I'll make it free. So I bought and invested in success rather than use my money to ensure how to handle failure. And now 20,000 kids have gone through the Chicago Star Scholarship, graduating for free. So does money matter? Of course it does. How you spend it and what you spend it on is as much a question as not how much it is. Yeah. And I think, so that's kind of where I think the debate always kind of misses the target.
Leadership matters too, and in Chicago, you had a great deal of power in the mayor's office to make change.
I am a middle child. We like that.
We don't have that here in Detroit. We don't have that here really in Michigan. I mean, one of the problems that we have, I think, is clarity of authority, singular authority, and the ability to move the needle through that kind of leadership. We're not alone in that in Michigan. I mean, that's a more common problem than not.
Look, I believe in the buck stops here. When I ran for mayor, I knew what I was running for. I knew what the authority was for a mayor as it related to public schools. And that's why I ran. Now, Chicago, 7 consecutive years, was the #1 city for corporate redevelopment and #1 city for 7 consecutive years for foreign direct investment. I was proud of that, grew, but if you ask me what data point, 54% graduation rate, walked out 83%. Walked in 10 years earlier, Secretary Bennett called Chicago the worst public school system in America. When you were at the Tribune, you know that. Walked out, Sean Reardon at Stanford University said Chicago Public Schools is #1 of the top 100 in America. You asked me which data point I cared more about, was that graduation rate, our reading and math scores, our fact that we went from what Bennett called the worst to what Sean Reardon at Stanford called the best. That to me was a more important measure of the future of the city of Chicago, and I was very proud to be #1 city for corporate relocations. But if you ask me what I cared about, what I would walk through, now I joke sometimes, when I was elected mayor, I was 6'2" and 250 pounds. I'm now 148 dripping wet, but it takes all of you, but that's why I ran. Now, some people will run for a different reason, but I believe in the buck stops here, and you got to be willing to take on that responsibility and be accountable for it.
You're also pretty worked up about this idea of social media and cell phones in schools,
Yes.
I hear. Tell me why.
Because I think social media is poisoning our children. I think it's
It's a pretty strong statement. Poisoning.
Well, let me ask you, you're a father, I'm a father. Have you ever run into a friend of one of your children and says, you know what my kid's missing? I'm on the screen. Have you?
No.
Okay. The #1 fight at home between a parent and a child is about shutting that thing off. Now, ever since we've taken phones out of classrooms, kids' academics are improving, their attention is improving, their friendships are improving, their mental health is improving. You think that's a coincidence? Now, #2, Australia started this. France, Italy, Germany, Dutch, England, they're all starting it. 16 years and younger, no Instagram, no TikTok, no Facebook. Ban it. We have turned our adolescents over to an algorithm, and the adults are losing to the algorithm. And as somebody who took on big tobacco, and we drove our teen smoking from the 30s down to single digits, this is an addiction that mom and dad can't fight alone. And many times it's the mother alone. And either we're going to be honest that our kids are as valuable as the Australian kids, and they're as important as the French kids, or we're going to let another generation fall to the victims. Have you ever, there's enough scientific data. As I said, my mom and dad wanted a doctor, they got a spin doctor. This is what they got. But I've read enough data. Mental health problems with adolescents starts in 2012, and like a hockey stick goes up. What happens? 2012, Instagram bought by Facebook, and it's changed everything. 3 weeks ago, before the Washington Post decided to become that of a paper, I self-edited what I thought happened. They did a story of the documents from Instagram about how they had to target adolescents. If I had taken Instagram out and wrote Marlboro cigarettes, it'd be the same document when the tobacco company says, oh, we don't target kids. And we finally had congressional hearings and exposed what they knew they were lying to you. Now, you have a lot of other topics. I can go on about this. Now, you're going to need, if you're going to take on big tech, you're going to need somebody with a big mouth who won't stop until we fix it. Do not leave a mother alone facing off against these companies. It's too powerful. So either we're going to level set this. Now, I say this also, we had at our home, even when I was chief of staff mayor, we had 4 meals, dinners a week. our Sabbath dinner, our Sunday night, and then we picked 2. There was no communication. Now, I am very proud. If I start talking about my kids, I'll start crying because I'm so proud of them. But we had the ability to do it. Not every family has that. And there are times in which, whether it's tobacco companies, insurance companies, tech companies, the government has to step in on the side of the parents and help them out.
I want to talk a little about the moment. This is
The moment we're having or the moment?
the moment that we're all having. Moment in the country, really.
Yeah.
And you're somebody who's looking at that moment and thinking about the future. What is the thing that, for you, animates the opposite, I guess, of what we're dealing with now, right? I think that's the question that a lot of people have for Democrats, right?
Well,
it's one thing to criticize what's going on.
Sure.
It's another thing to say, well, here's an articulation of a different path.
All right, let me work at a couple levels. Just the political side of my brain. What I'm excited about 2028, it will be the first election in about 20 years since Barack Obama's 2008 that is going to be about the future, not the past. We've had 20 years of elections, MAGA, Build Back Better, that is retrospective. You can't drive 55 miles an hour looking through the rearview mirror. That is, make America great again, Build Back Better, it's all retro. 2028 will be the first election that the American people are going to demand that's about tomorrow. That's A. B, the second part of this that I think is really important, when I go all around the country, I've been down in Mississippi, been in Grand Rapids yesterday, been down out in Nevada, been in Iowa, across the country. There is a palpable anxiety. I don't care race, I don't care income, I don't care background. The one thing we all have, we have a foundation. We're anxious about tomorrow. And we don't think we're taking care of business anymore. We're so much, our politics is so much about Braveheart and Hunger Games that we know tomorrow's going to be a challenge, but we're not taking care of business today about it, regardless of background, income, etc. It has different reasons for that anxiety. And then third, I mean this just as kind of a self-awareness, which I'm having a rare moment of here. I don't give a crap. And what I mean by that is, when I ran for mayor, if I had lost, I would have been like, oh my God. If I had been chief of staff and I didn't succeed at getting ACA healthcare done or, mayor, etc. I'm at a point in my life, I'm going to tell you what I think we got to get done. You like it, great. You don't like it, you can join my family and not like me also. I don't care. But I'm going to tell you what I think has to get done. Now, some people think, well, why are you talking about education like this? Because I think it's important. And if you don't think it's important, I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me. I've got to be honest, in part of my career, that bothered me. If you don't like somebody that's going to tell you what you think has to get done and have the kind of forward to get it done, that's okay by me. Now, the one thing I know about leadership, you have to have an idea, know why you're doing what you're doing, and then have the strength and the guts to get it done. And if you go through my career, whether it was taking on the NRA, big tobacco, the insurance company, the banks, teachers, and the unions, I will take on a battle, whether it comes to big tech. If I think something has to get done, I will go through a brick wall to get it done. And to me, we are at that moment. We can't keep doing what we're doing and make the changes that we needed done. I do happen to think I've been benefited, and got one more race in me, if I decide to do this, that having been overseas in Japan and having been in City Hall and having been in the White House for 2 presidents and have that honor and their confidence, have a bit of experience to make sure we don't waste a day and we don't have a person to waste. But I think there's a palpable anxiety about tomorrow. And one last thing I'll say about Japan, about my time in Japan. Never in American history have we faced a country that is 3 times our size. China's kids go to school 6 days a week. They have massively invested in their future, and they're making a conscious decision on how to invest in that future. We can't get from here to there and make the 21st century the American century like our family did and like we grew up, with 50% of our kids reading and doing math at grade level. Where we have got kids going to college where we have to do remedial math and reading because they didn't get it in their primary years. We have the urgency, as we started with the Reverend Jackson, we have the urgency of now. It is not an accident that the civil rights movement started in the classrooms. The ability to build the 21st century started in the classrooms. There are 4 great periods of American growth. After Civil War, turn of the century, after World War II, and Sputnik. What is the one through line in all of them? Land-grant colleges, universal high school education, GI Bill, science and tech. A lot of other things happen, but there's one thing that is always designated where America leapfrogged the world. Education. And here we are, 50% of our kids can't read and do math at grade level. No president, no governor from either party has called for an emergency meeting and said, here's the way out of it. And the one thing I will say is that we either do it ourselves and get going, or we're going to get another 20 years of the same. And I think it's time we hit the stop, get ourselves organized, and get the roadmap out of here into basically doing what we got to do. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take somebody that's going to actually willing to pay the price and do it.
So in that way, you would be a disruptor.
Well, I do think this. If you think, yes, because I think there's things to keep, like what phonics told you. The elementary years are about phonics. But I do think if you got CEOs like Mr. Farley, I think that's a challenge to all of us. You got 5,000, let me tell you one anecdote and interrupt myself in this. I met a young man today up at the operating engineers training facility. He worked at a warehouse making about $1 more than minimum wage. He's now an operating engineer, did a down payment, bought a home, got married, and he could afford a middle-class American dream life. Jim Farley from Ford said, I got 5,000 jobs, 6 figures, benefits, and I can't find anybody. What was the answer when the mic was dropped? What did the president say? He was on that panel with the Secretary of Labor. Did she go back and say, here are the changes we're going to make? Did anybody say of the 43 job training programs, here are 3 we're going to totally change, consolidate, make reforms, we're going to address what Mr. Farley just said? You got kids living in basements, can't afford to get a home and a mortgage. He's got a middle-class job, and he can't find anybody. We have accepted failure as a norm. We have to wake up and start attacking these problems as Americans, not as blue or red.
Okay, we have audience questions next.
Oh.
Debbie is going to rejoin us.
Debbie, I was going to say, Henry Kissinger has a great quote. Does anybody have questions for my answers? So we can go from there.
So we're going to give you, there have been several international questions, and we've had quite a lot of drama related to Canada lately here. So this question is, after Mark Carney's remarks at Davos on the rupture in the world order, should the U.S. try to restore the old system or lead the one that's replacing it? And since we're talking about Canada, could you talk about the bridge while you're at it, too?
Have you seen the bridge?
Yeah, well, yes.
Stunning.
Yeah. Well, I do think that's a telling sign. You have a bridge that's built, economic growth, a lot of jobs depend on it. It's a deal between Michigan and Canada. The United States has nothing, as a federal government, to say about it. And the President of the United States, on behalf of a billionaire and a contributor, decides to weigh in on something for the first time. Nobody really cares what you have to say. Okay? Nobody really has to care. Now look, I'm going to just be in the area of being honest, and not just Canada. I have a piece I write for the Journal. It's going to come out in 2 days, I think, because that's the schedule. The president's not wrong to say that the area, the North America, Central America, and South America are important to the United States. Now, I wouldn't go to where he is on the sphere of influence, but he's not wrong. And the truth is, Latin and Central America was treated as a second-class concern for the United States rather than a primary. Now, I don't think you start off trying to build, and I'm using his, not mine, sphere of influence by calling Canada the 51st state. It will never be the 51st state. And you shouldn't do that, because one of the great benefits for the United States is we have 2 oceans and we have 2 allies on either side of us. It gives us huge strength, let alone economic opportunity. The other thing is, you don't actually create conflict with all your European allies about the Greenland, who, and I say this up front, why would you pay wholesale price for something they're willing to give you for free? For being a Spartan businessman, that's pretty stupid. You want more runways? We'll do it. You want more troops up here that we're sharing with the United States? We'll do it. You want access to the chemicals? We'll do it. Why would you pay full price? And I mean you, because that's who's going to pay. The third thing is, I think as a result of this area, it's not an accident that Europe and all of Latin America agreed to a major trade deal they couldn't agree to 25 years as soon as the United States does what it does on Venezuela. Important. How you're going about it is making the problem much worse than the solution that you could have been. With a little honey, not all vinegar, we go a lot farther in actually having a stronger hemisphere where America is not only the dominant, we have wind at our back.
Thank you. Well, you're in Michigan, and the Mideast matters to all the communities, and there were several questions, so I'm going to give you 2 pieces of it.
I thought you were going to give me 3 questions and I could pick which one I wanted.
No. Netanyahu called you a self-hating Jew. What precipitated that? And will Hamas disarm? Will the conflict in Gaza end once and for all? Somebody in this audience asked that.
You have 6 minutes to sort all that out.
Okay. So, I don't know, we're going to be here for dinner, so get ready. Okay. So, on the Prime Minister thing, back in 2009, Prime Minister Netanyahu called me, and David actually, but he called me a self-hating Jew. And what precipitated it was, I told him back in 2009, what you're doing on housing in the West Bank is against your interests, but most importantly, it's against America's interests. And there will never be a greater Israel, meaning from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, and there will never be a river to the sea. And the moment we give away these extremes and start sitting together and working together, we'll find a way to actually, both people to live in peace and prosper, and their children to have a better future. That has always been, since Ben Gurion, the dream. And we disagreed, and I, rather than say lip sync what other people, I told him to his face in the Oval Office. And that's when he said what he said on that. And I still to this day believe, as somebody that worked beside President Clinton, not only on the Oslo Accords, but the Y Plantation, and then going to Aqaba for the Israel-Jordan peace signing, there is a chance for peace. Now, I happen to think, and also not only was the Prime Minister wrong in 2009, Israel has never been more secure strategically and more vulnerable politically. Today, nations are part of the global economy. They're part of wanting to be integrated with it. That is a home game for Israel. And because you don't have the courage to pursue peace the way you constantly could pursue war and conflict, you are giving up on a future that is actually an A game and a home game for Israel. And second, as it relates to Gaza, look, it started October 7th. Any country attacked like that has a right for self-defense. That has been said. But Israel was no more secure going from 50,000 died Palestinians to 70,000. And that was a prime minister that put his politics ahead of the interest of bringing the hostage home and bringing those Israeli troops home and starting for Israel to build and for Gaza to rebuild. I think this prime minister has walked away from the Zionist dream, and he has made Israel more isolated. And I've said this before, so I'll say it again. It is never in my imagination, after 2,000 years of the Jews trying to get out of a ghetto, that it would be an Israeli prime minister who would lead the Jews back into the ghetto. And that is what he has done. And he is wrong for doing it.
Thank you. I think we need a lightning round to lighten.
You don't think I need some water to cool me off?
Well, and Steve says both of you can answer these questions, but fast.
Okay.
First of all, your first car.
My first car?
Yeah, you were in Detroit.
Yeah.
Better have been American-made.
It was a Jeep Wrangler.
Okay, good. Steve, do you want
Black. The hood came off. I took my wife then on a blind date in that Jeep.
Mine was also a Jeep. It was a Jeep Comanche pickup.
Yeah.
Wonder what they could do in those Jeeps. What's the best?
That's the second question in the lightning round.
A karaoke song that you can nail.
What's
a
it?
karaoke song that karaoke.
Oh, okay.
What song can you nail?
No, I'm not going to do it, but fire and lightning. Yeah.
Stephen?
In Baltimore, where I lived for a long time, I used to hang out at a bar that had karaoke every Thursday, and I would sing the Spider-Man theme song.
So, we know you have a lot of feelings on social media, etc. So what's your favorite app on your phone?
What's my favorite app on my phone? Apple News.
Sad.
Yeah.
Mine is probably my messages.
Yeah.
I spend more time. Each week it tells you how much time you spend on every app, and message is my number one each week.
Yeah, but Debbie, you don't know what's on my Apple News. You just know it's Apple News.
Well, that's true. That's true. We get too much of it. Best dish that you cook?
Best dish? Greek chicken.
I've actually had it. It is good. Stephen?
Mine is probably my grandma's mac and cheese.
Okay, so...
Wait, time out. You know there's a new book out on the history of mac and cheese?
No, I did not know that.
Go back, yeah.
My grandma should be in that book, right?
I think last week the Journal did it. Who knew there was a history of the mac and cheese? But there's a great book on it.
All right, our last question to Rahm of the day. Advice to your 25-year-old self.
Well, I will say, my wife used to say, we have 3 kids, Zachariah, Alana, Leah. She said, if we ever have a 4th, we're going to call it patience. So you have a daily reminder. I said to her, okay, but just remember one thing. Patience is a waste of time.
I'm using that quote.
All right, give it up for Ambassador Emanuel Stephen Henderson.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Ambassador, you're welcome back here anytime. In fact, come back tomorrow. We'd love to hear some more from you. Stephen and Debbie, thanks so much for your important roles today. Ladies and gentlemen, tell your friends to join the Detroit Economic Club on time, every time. This meeting of the DEC is now adjourned. Thank you.